Thanks so much. If you're listening to our podcast, it is Anxiety Warrior. You can look it up on Apple Podcasts. You can look it up on Spotify. If you're listening to my podcast, specifically Fire Breathing Rob on YouTube, you can check that out, and also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But we're doing this together, and I did talk about this rather on the last week's podcast that I did with Elke and Elke Scholz. Like I said, she is a certified psychotherapist, registered psychotherapist. She is in Canada. If you want to learn more about her, you can go to www.elkescholz.com if you want to find more about her in general. So we are going to be talking about today on reflection, and Elke is going to get into that in just a second, and really reflecting on gratitude and gifts of life in a time where everybody is struggling in the US, Canada, and even around the world. So Elke, thanks again for doing this with me. I really enjoyed doing this with you, and I look forward to many more.
Yes, thank you, Rob. Me too. I'm pretty excited about it. And so our topic today is on reflection. And so typically, it's interesting, you mentioned gratitude. We think about that. We think about meditation. And then I'm just going to go general. Generally, then we think about perhaps yoga or quieting our mind, or what is meditation, though there's many forms of reflection, and there's many ways to quiet our mind. And I thought we'd just spend a few minutes talking about that, and that hopefully it make it more accessible. And perhaps there are ways already that that you already do quieten your mind and do reflection. So a simple one is going out in nature. And that's probably one of the most, I think, personally, beautiful ways to quiet my mind, to ground myself. And the Japanese, they call it a forest bath. A walk in the woods can be that. And it's about the smells and all those beautiful ions that we get, and that type of reflection. We can sit on a rock. That is very popular here in Muskoka, since we have a lot of Canadian shield and rock, and quartz, of course. So that is a lovely way. And a lot of our hikes are on rocks, having a walk, a mindful walk in nature. And I know, Rob, you cycle, and I'm a cyclist as well. That's another way, is a sport, right? I think when you're riding your bike, you're very present in that.
When people have these extremely busy work schedules, and they're going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. They have kids, they have other priorities. And it seems like a lot of people really don't take that time that they need to really rest and relax their mind, body, and soul. What would you say to them is to make sure that they do take that time to reflect on life?
That's brilliant. And it's a great question, Rob. And that's one of the reasons I love doing this with you. So we need to be creative. And if we're in transit, if we're driving, obviously we've got to pay attention if we're driving, for sure. However, as we're driving, we can still practice gratitude. We can still practice mantras and affirmations. We can still practice being present. And that could just mean focusing on driving. And even if it's in traffic or in the city, perhaps it's not, perhaps you're out in the country. However, you can enjoy the sky and be present. Really think about the act of driving. So there's that. There's also walking. Do you need to, we need to walk. If we're walking to our office, if we're walking to our grocery store, we can pick those moments. And you're right. In these busy moments, we need to be creative. Though it also brings me to another point of being present, is something like cooking. And I think most of us need to cook. Some of us are recipients, of course, of somebody cooking, which is quite lovely. However, cooking can make, well, for me, I want to bring that forward is I'm very present when I cook. I'm just thinking about whether I'm making jellies or jams or whether I'm cooking a meal. It brings me very, very present. And so I would ask, is it for you, is it, again, is it cycling or is it playing a game with your children? And we can be very present in that play. And how wonderful can that be? And so the reflection is really about coming back to our center, bringing back our attention to what's right in front of us, our family, and being present. And of course, it is thinking about, those wonderful things that we're grateful for, that we have gratitude for, our affirmations, and of course, our mantras.
I think it's a lot that people just get fixated on their work and other things, and they don't take that time. So I think that's great advice. And the interview, and thanks so much for the tips and tricks to get our mind, body, and soul back into the way it's supposed to be. Obviously, we need to do our work and get through our days, but we do also need that time for ourselves. So last tip as we end the interview, Elke, if you could give it to us, please.
Well, I'd like to plant a seed with you, is that when we take time for reflection, and I understand we're all busy, even if it's 5 minutes to begin with, it's a wonderful test, I suppose. 10 minutes, of course, and letting it grow. What you'll find is that you will end up having a more harmonious, easy day, and hopefully see that investment can increase. And when I spend that time every day in reflection, my day goes fantastic. And I've made a commitment, and I've been doing this probably over 15 years, where every day I spend time in reflection.
Elke Scholz here on Fire Breather Rob. Definitely check out the podcast, Anxiety Warrior, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, Elke, thanks so much for the tips and tricks. We look forward to keep doing this again as we continue in our crazy world. So thanks again.
Thanks, Rob. Take care.